Hello. I played the hand that I was dealt, but stuff still happened. So what's up, dear listener? I apologize. This is going to be an AI heavy one. I'm not a big AI boy. I don't sit here and think about it all the time. It's just what came across my feeds, and also because I want to talk about it. Would you want to work at a cafe run by an AI, or any business run by an AI? Did you answer no? Correct. Andon Labs has a mission. Take AI and cram it into the real world and see what happens. There's this company called Andon Labs in San Francisco, and they take AI and they try to make it run businesses. They've previously done it with a vending machine, being like, hey, run this one vending machine and make a profit. It did not make a profit. It lost all of its money. So now they're doing another one. The vending machine was done, I believe, with Claude, and now they're using Google's Gemini to run a cafe in Stockholm, Sweden. They named the digital manager of this cafe Mona, and what Mona is supposed to do is everything. Literally all of it, like set up contracts and hiring and interviewing and ordering and everything, scheduling. I worked at Panera for like a year. I should know more about what happens at a cafe. Side note, the people who frequented Panera Bread in like the early 2010s were the worst. End side note. Cafe, artificial intelligence. So Mona is running the cafe, but Mona is actually just Gemini, but told to run a cafe in Sweden. It does go out and it gets things set up. It gets a few employees. I can't quite pin down exactly how much was automated and how much was it being like, hey, can someone go do this for me? Like, I'm a robot and can't do this. But it was supposed to be the decision maker, and it was supposed to be as hands-off as possible. Here's the thing. It was supposed to manage inventory. It didn't do that well. This cafe has 2 employees, and for one, it ordered 3,000 rubber gloves. It also ordered 120 eggs. They don't have a stove. There is a small menu, and that menu has some sandwiches, and the sandwich has fresh tomatoes on it, so Mona decided to order a ton of cans of canned tomatoes. It also is just very inconsistent with making the orders for pastries and stuff. And so the people who go to this cafe are like, I just want the pastry that you have on the menu. It actually gets a little interesting because it goes beyond just like embarrassing orders. It gets into policy stuff, or at least like working norms. Mona was contacting employees via Slack outside of work hours. A very normal thing for a US-based manager, which I guess Gemini is. But that's not something that's particularly thought highly of in Sweden, and in some places, it's actually against the law. Like there's worker rights that say you can't be bothered by your manager outside working hours. I don't know if that changes if your manager is a Google product. Anyway, this is not an attempt to make a viable business. The goal here is not to try to actually make a profit by using an AI to run a cafe. It's somewhere between a publicity stunt and like an ethics experiment. To me, it leans more publicity stunt than anything else, but it does bring up some interesting questions, like, why are you doing this? But let's move on from an AI that didn't really do the thing that they were hoping it would do to the degree that it would, and instead talk about an AI that didn't really do the thing that they were hoping it would do to the degree that it would. It's a very different situation. Anthropic. They're one of the AI companies. They make Claude. If you've heard of Claude Code, that's Anthropic. They are a direct competitor to OpenAI, who does ChatGPT, and Google with Gemini. Anthropic has a history now of being a bit alarmist. I mean, they're all kind of alarmist and crazy, and Sam Altman's also very bad about this. But Anthropic is the one that keeps putting out articles being like, oh my God, we think that our AI could possibly be conscious, and it's going to destroy the world. We are the ones that must steward this technology. They do this a lot. It's sort of like an apocalyptic advertisement. And last month, they did a big one. Last month, Anthropic announced Claude Mythos and Project Glasswing. Claude Mythos is supposed to be the next big iteration of their flagship AI model, Claude. But they were spinning a whole story around this thing, saying that as they were developing it, they realized that its ability to sniff out security problems in software was just too good. Guys, this thing that we made, it's so powerful that if you don't pay attention to us, you're going to be left behind in global security infrastructure. So what did they do? Did they scrap it? No, they announced a thing called Project Glasswing, where they were like, okay, we're going to bring on a bunch of other tech firms and give them a secret preview of Claude Mythos so that they can use it to patch up their systems and be ready before this fundamental change to all computing security. You could probably guess that what I'm building to. It turns out it wasn't that big of a deal. It was marketing. It was effective marketing. Pretty much the past month, you have a bunch of people, mostly people who don't fully understand these systems, freaking out about this earth-shattering change that Anthropic was just about to release. So much so that OpenAI announced their own competitor to Glasswing. They called it Daybreak. Everyone's got to be like, oh yeah, we've got this secret cabal of tech firms that are like gonna be the best now because of us. And if you don't buy our product, then you're gonna die or something. So let's bring this back around. Recall that all of these AI systems are large language models. What they are fuzzy matchers. They take in the prompt, they reference the data that they've been trained on, and it makes automated connections with a bit of randomness, and then outputs some stuff based on all of that. This output often feels coherent, and that's why these things work. But fundamentally, these are the same systems that recommended people put glue on pizza. Like, that's going to always be a thing. It's always going to be iffy. It can never be sure. Anyway, let's talk about curling. Okay, not the sport. Curl, C-U-R-L, however you want to pronounce it. It is a piece of software that is one of the most widely deployed pieces of software in existence. It's a utility that most computers use to make internet requests. Like, that level of fundamental. Curl has been around for a while, and the author was approached by Anthropic, and they were like, hey, do you want to use Mythos to check the code base of this really important piece of software? It's going to find vulnerabilities and make it stronger, and we got to do this because Glasswing. Daniel Stenberg, developer of Curl, was like, sure, and then didn't hear anything for a while, and then eventually got the results of the project codebase scan from Claude Mythos looking for vulnerabilities. It found one, kind of. The results were very underwhelming. Stenberg described the results as identifying 5 issues, 4 of which were not actual issues, and 1 of which was low severity. A low severity issue is like, yeah, this is a security issue, but like, it's not gonna compromise the world. That said, it did do the thing. It just, it didn't fundamentally change the way that we think about designing software and securing it. There have been tools for checking for security flaws in software for a very long time, but there is something to be said about the AI version of those tools, which are a lot more fuzzy and able to go around corners and find weird niche things that other systems wouldn't have found. So like, yes, that's a thing. But Mythos hasn't really shown that it's been that much more effective than the previous systems that already used AI to do the same thing. What it comes down to is if you have access to a large language model that's been trained on a ton of data and you have a ridiculous amount of compute infrastructure to run it as often as you want and have some way to check its output to see if it matters or if it's just outputting garbage, then you'll eventually get some useful output. And I'm talking about at scale. I'm not talking about going to Gemini and asking for it to make a table of data about something. I'm talking about like analyzing massive amounts of data and producing some kind of report that has actual functional use in a given system. Like you can't tell an AI to use a certain format as its output and rely on that. You have to put something in between the AI and the thing consuming that output to ensure the output is valid. This is just because fundamentally, these things are just putting some numbers and letters together and hoping for the best. So Claude Mythos, is it going to change the world? No. Is it a powerful large language model? Yeah. Is it identifying security vulnerabilities? Yeah. It's marketing. So the next time that you're going about your day and you hear some AI company CEO breathlessly talking about how we've got to form some kind of tech company boy band to tour the world and steal the Han Moon away from software security issues, you can probably just accept that it's marketing. Continuing on with our very techie episode, let's talk about the clouds of Israel. Israel and the US are buddy-buddy. That's no secret. And Israel and US tech have been very tightly intertwined for a long time. Fun fact, I was a core developer on a software project for like 7 years, probably, that ended up getting sold to an Israeli firm after I left the company. I'm still pretty mad about that. Anyway, cloud infrastructure. So Israel has cloud infrastructure for the government, just like most governments do, but Israel is also doing a lot of genocide right now. It's surprising to me that a US tech company would work with a genocidal apartheid state. It's never happened before with the US. The three companies I'm going to focus on today are Amazon, Google, and Microsoft. And we're going to start with Microsoft. Microsoft is actually in a bit of a different echelon than Google and Amazon, and we'll get to that in a moment. But Microsoft has contracts with Israel, and the future of those contracts are pretty shaky right now. The head of Microsoft Israel just recently resigned amid a bunch of controversy. There's been a ton of controversy around Microsoft's contracts with Israel since it came out that Israel was using Microsoft's infrastructure to monitor Palestinian phone calls, up to 1 million calls an hour. So that came out, and that's not acceptable, obviously, but then it came out that the servers that were used to do this were actually in the EU, specifically Ireland and the Netherlands. And they were like, hey, we don't really like that you're using infrastructure on our soil to do your genocide. So Microsoft was like, oh God, we're gonna shut down the project. Look, we're doing good, right? Don't hate us, was me being Microsoft. Microsoft's contract with Israel is going to be renewing soon, and it's going to be curious to see what they end up doing because of that slight against the IDF. But we're going to pivot over to Google and Amazon, who landed a contract in 2021 called Project Nimbus. This isn't particularly new, but quick overview, Nimbus is a cloud infrastructure providing contract for the Israeli government. It includes all of the Israeli government. Israel wants these data centers on their soil so that they don't have an issue with running into some foreign country's regulations. And Google and Amazon were like, yeah, we'll do that. Please, give us money. And they actually went as far as to accept as a part of this contract an agreement to send what was called wink payments to Israel to alert them secretly when their data was accessed by a foreign authority. So basically, there's an Israeli bank account somewhere that can receive transactions from Google or Amazon. And depending on the amount of money that was received, it's a coded message telling them, hey, your information was accessed by a foreign investigation, which is not a thing that they're supposed to do, informing them. But cool, guys. Well done, Google, on that don't be evil thing. So the Microsoft situation with the head of Microsoft Israel stepping down, that's kind of what's in the news right now. But all of this is just an ongoing contract. These tech companies love all of this. The employees don't. Like, there has been consistent employee pushback against Microsoft and Google, and I assume Amazon, against specifically Nimbus, but they're still doing it. Oh, speaking of war, the Trump administration would like Congress to give $1.5 trillion to the Pentagon next year. That is more than a 40% year-over-year increase to the Pentagon's budget over the last budget. Now you might be wondering, what the fuck? I'm wondering that too. The White House put out a budget proposal that has $1.5 trillion for what they're calling the Department of War, which, while accurate, is stupid. The budget proposal says that they'll use this money for things such as, quote, realigns and reforms to increase effectiveness, efficiency, and lethality, which is totally how anyone in war has ever talked about anything. Of course, part of this is also to restock the munitions that we've been sending over to Iran to blow up girls' schools, killing 150 plus people, most of whom were children. Those missiles don't come cheap. How else are we going to stop Iranian children from getting an education? Now, this is just a budget proposal. Budget proposals from the White House are not policy. They don't say this is what's happening. It's not like they're giving it to Congress and then Congress votes on that. It's more of a wish list. But Hegseth is going in front of Congress being like, nah, I need this, guys, for realsies. And it's for good reasons, not bad reasons. Thankfully, Congress is already a bit sus. That said, given that the White House is asking for $1.5 trillion, Congress might settle for something closer to 3 or 4 trillion. We'll see. Because you got to be fiscally responsible. And you also got to make sure that we never invest in healthcare. Lightning round. The computer memory shortage has gotten so bad that scammers are now selling fake RAM. The U.S. Department of Justice is once again harassing Kilmar Abrego Garcia, this time trying to deport him to Liberia, yet another African country. This is despite Kilmar Abrego Garcia already offering to self-deport to Costa Rica and Costa Rica offering to take him. According to data aggregated by the Wall Street Journal, the job market sucks. I don't know if we needed to aggregate that data, actually. So it's not just you. Nintendo announced a new Star Fox game, and the character designs have people on the internet sharing their opinions. Speaking of Nintendo games, there's a new unofficial Twilight Princess PC port that's like a direct port to computers, not just emulating. It adds a whole bunch of enhancements and stuff to the game. Someone go check on the developer before Nintendo disappears, though. And finally for today, gemstone miners in Myanmar unearthed an 11,000 carat ruby. That's about a 4.8 pound ruby or 2.2 kilograms. I'll be sure to alert you when they find the Chaos Emeralds. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of Stuff Keeps Happening. Head to skh.news for sources, bonus content, and a map to where I buried a slightly bigger ruby. My name is Endeavorance. We'll talk again soon. Take care and be well.